everyone, what's up? My name is Joss and welcome back to my channel Squibbles Reads. As you can tell, we have a new setup. We have a new camera, a new microphone, and new bookshelves behind me. Obviously, I haven't put all my books up there, but it is semi-color coordinated now, so hopefully that works for me. But yeah, if there's anything that you guys see that I can change in my camera settings to improve like my video or my audio quality, definitely let me know because I'm still tinkering around with all the settings and stuff like that. But today I wanted to do a big book haul, which is probably going to be my last book haul of 2017, to show you all the books that I have accumulated in the month of December. And as you can tell in the thumbnail, I do have quite a few, so why don't we just jump right on in. The first book that I acquired was The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. This is a book that I read I think a couple of months ago. It has our protagonist Monty, and he is about to embark on a grand trip around Europe. It's kind of like his last romp, and he goes with his best friend Percy, who he has a massive crush on, and also his little sister Felicity, who is super badass, and she knows a ton about medicine even though she is only 15 years old. Because he is a devious little thing, they get into a lot of mischief and there's kind of a mystery element, but what I really loved about this was Monty's character development as well as the development of the relationship between Monty and Percy. I also have another book which was one of my favorite books of 2016, and it was on my top books of 2016 list, and this is Deceit and Other Possibilities by Vanessa Hua. This is a collection of short stories that feature Asian and Asian American protagonists, and I really enjoyed a lot of these. I saw myself in some of these characters in these short stories. A lot of these stories talk about immigrant stories from an East Asian country to the United States. The next book that I have, I didn't actually know was coming out, but when I found out that it was, I was super excited because I loved this author's other book called All the Birds in the Sky, which was super cuckoo bananas, but this is a short story collection called 6 Months, 3 Days, 5 Others by Charlie Jane Anders. I believe all of these short stories do involve some sort of sci-fi or fabulous element to them, and if it is anything like All the Birds in the Sky, I think it will also be kind of cuckoo bananas, but I think I will also really enjoy it for some perfect escapist reading. I also have here a book with a very beautiful cover. This is Goodbye Vitamin by Rachel Kong. This is about a 30-year-old woman named Ruth, and her father is a professor and he is slowly losing his memory, and her mother has apparently also gone through some type of betrayal. I haven't read this book yet, but it has been on my TBR for the really good portion of 2017, and I've just never gotten a chance to pick it up, but I did find a hard copy, so I had to pick this one up when I saw it. This book revolves around themes like loss and love and the portrayal of grief, so those are all themes that you guys know I really enjoy those things. I also was sent an ARC by Tor. This is the third book in the series, that the Wayward Children series, I think it's called. It's one, the first book was Every Heart a Doorway, and the second book was Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Sean McGuire. I haven't actually read the other two, but I did get sent the third one, so that'll definitely be some binge reading of all three of those very soon. So a couple of months ago, I went to an event at a local bookstore which was hosted by Russell from Ink and Paper Blog. He was in conversation with two authors, and one of those books that those authors wrote, that she was talking about at that event, was called Florence and Ecstasy by Jessie Chaffee. What really captured my attention about it was that we have an adult female protagonist, but she is experiencing some challenges with her own body image, maybe some body dysmorphia, and a tough relationship with herself and with food. So she is originally from Boston, but she goes to Florence. She speaks very little Italian, and she goes to kind of try and discover more things about herself to see if she can form a better relationship with food. It's really interesting because Italy is a country that does have a very strong relationship with food, so a lot of really interesting relationships that do take place in this story, a lot of self-discovery, reflection, stuff like that. I did also hear Jessie Chaffee talk a little bit more about it, which I thought was really interesting. The next book that I have is Behold the Dreamers by Imbolo Mbui. This is a book that I read last year, I believe. She is a Cameroonian author, and this book revolves around a Cameroonian family. We have Jende Jonga, who is the father, and then his wife Nenny, and then their son. This book does take place in the fall of 2007, and during that time there was a whole bunch of financial stuff going on in the States, and that affects him because he gets a job as a chauffeur for a white family, and obviously there are different relationships in that family and their family. There are issues of race and privilege and employment and finances and immigration and all these different details about immigration, some that I did not know before I went into this book, and I really enjoyed this. I think I gave it 4.5 stars, something like that, and before this I had never read a book with a Cameroonian protagonist or by a Cameroonian author, so I really enjoyed this and I would recommend it. The next book that I have is a really pretty book. This is Monterey Bay by Lindsay Hatton. This is a book that takes place in 1940, and our protagonist, Margot, she arrives in Monterey, California when she is 15 years old. She helps her father with a whole bunch of different things, and the father is a little bit on the, I guess, eccentric side, which it does say on the blurb. If you guys did not know, a big part of Monterey's history does have to do with with John Steinbeck, and this book does as well. There is some issues with a biology lab and Margot's involvement in the biology lab and her relationship with all the different people that work there. Also, I guess a little bit of talk about women in science, women in biology, zoology, and what the recourse was in the year 1940. So I think this is going to be a really great book. It is also very, very pretty. The next book that I have is also a very beautiful book. This is The End We Start From by Megan Hunter. It has this like beautiful gold foiling on it, but we meet a woman and her newborn child Z, and this book starts in London, and there has just been this flood and everything is in danger of being submerged underwater. So this woman and Z, they go to find safety elsewhere. So a lot of themes of motherhood and change and seeking safety and seeking refuge. I was flipping through this book and it's written, I don't know if you can see this, but in kind of like little paragraphs that are made up of one or two very short sentences. So I'm interested to see how this book will flow and how it will explore those themes in the very short amount of pages that it has. The next book I have is Hilde by Nicola Griffith. This is a book, as you can tell by the price tag. I picked it up with store credit from my used bookstore that I trade books in at. And I don't know too much about this book, but I did grab it immediately because it is a fantasy novel and our protagonist is bisexual. And I thought it was really cool because I was reading this interview with the author, and let me read it to you from my phone. It says, "I've been asked this often enough that it's time to be clear. Hilde is not straight. Interviewers and reviewers have already asked me, so why is Hilde a lesbian? I say, first, she's bisexual. Second, why the fuck not?" So I thought that was awesome, so I definitely had to grab this one when I saw it. The next book that I have, I also heard about from Russell because he is like where I hear about maybe like 50% of the books that I read. But this is The Immortal List by Chloe Benjamin. This comes out, I believe, in early January 2018. We start off in the year 1969 on New York City's Lower East Side, and apparently there is a woman traveling, and she is a psychic who can tell anyone the day that they are going to die. So we have this group of 4 children called the Gold Children, and they go and seek her out, trying to find out when they will die. And then we follow their journey throughout the next 5 decades, and we see them grow. I love stories where we do get to see characters grow because I feel like I get to know them so much better, which is why I also love multi-generational stories. But that is a talk that we can have later. I do believe this book comes out in January, and I'm super stoked to read it. The next book that I have is written by one of my favorite people on the internet. This is Difficult Women by Roxane Gay. It tells the story of multiple women that I guess could be perceived as difficult, or I guess more accurately that society perceives as could be difficult. For example, there is a woman who is an engineer in Michigan, and she is the only African-American person there. There is a woman whose husband switches places with his twin brother. There's another woman who works as a stripper, and she is trying to put herself through college. I have a pair of sisters who were abducted together when they were a child, and now they are inseparable. So next I have some fantasy that is inspired by East Asia, and these are novellas. So one of them is called The Red Threads of Fortune by Ji Yang, and the other one is called The Black Tides of Heaven. Beyond the fact that they are East Asian inspired and they are fantasy, I don't know too much about them, but if you look at them, like look at these covers, aren't they just like absolutely beautiful? The next book I have is also coming out in early January. It is a YA book by Marika Nijkamp, and this is called Before I Let Go. I did read her other book called This Is Where It Ends. It's about a school shooting. I didn't actually enjoy that one very much, but I am definitely willing to give this one a chance because I believe our protagonist is somewhere on the asexual spectrum. I think there is also a pansexual character in this book. It's about 2 girls, Corey and Kyra, and Corey's family moves away. They live in an Alaskan town. They are totally inseparable, and before Corey and her family leave, she tells Kyra to wait for her until she gets back because she just really wants to see her. But before Corey gets to come back, Kyra dies, and I think the mystery element surrounds all of that in this book. The next book that I have, I'm really excited about. I first heard about it on the All the Books podcast that Book Riot does. This is called Mother of All Pigs by Malou Halassa. This is a book that takes place in the country of Jordan. I've never read a book that was set in Jordan, and the author is Jordanian, and she's also Filipino-American. This book centers around the Sabas family who lives in Jordan, and in nearby Syria there is a lot of unrest, and in Jordan there is a black market that they kind of operate on, and everyone kind of makes money through there. The Sabas family has a lot of generations of women, but the husband, Hussein, is extremely patriarchal, and he is very controlling, and he has a job as a butcher. The main plot revolves around someone from Hussein's military past that comes into town, and the rest of the Sabas family has to decide whether or not to expose him or how to deal with his arrival. I'm just really excited for this one because I've never read anything set in Jordan. I think that the role of women in the story will be really interesting, especially in the setting and at this time. The next book that I have is definitely one of my absolute favorites of 2017. Spoiler alert for my my best books of 2017 video, but this is called Sorry to Disrupt the Peace by Patty Yumi Cottrell. This is about a woman named Helen Moran. She is in her 30s and she is waiting for a couch to arrive at her apartment that she has purchased with her roommate when all of a sudden she gets a phone call and her brother has died by suicide. So she packs up very quickly and she goes back to her Milwaukee town where we find out more about her, and she is a Korean immigrant and she was adopted by her family who is white. They are also extremely involved with their church and they provide that as justification for the fact that they are very stingy with their money, and she grew up in that type of environment. The prose in this novel is absolutely beautiful, and I think what made it really special is that it really invoked empathy in me as a reader, and it also made me comfortable with being uncomfortable, and the fact that Helen didn't know everything about herself and her identity, and she was kind of like trying on different hats in the story, and sometimes she would try something and it didn't really work out for her, and she was cool with that. So me as a reader, I had to sit in my discomfort with her kind of trying different stuff out, and I can't really explain more than that. I thought it was really interesting. It also dispelled some myths that people have about suicide and about mental health. It's amazing. The prose, the exposition is just, I can't even, it's beautiful. So I'm really happy that I got my hands on a hard copy of this. The next book that I have here is called Kintu by Jennifer Nansubuga Mukumbi and translated by Aaron Beatty. This is a novel that was first published in Kenya in the year 2014 and then was later translated into English. We start out in the year 1750 where a character named Kintu unleashes a curse that will plague multiple generations to come. And it is a reimagination of the history of Uganda, which I think is so cool. We follow a lot of the stories of Kintu's descendants and Kintu's ancestors and the impact that the curse has on the rest of the family. The next book that I have was a finalist for the Man Booker Prize this year. I don't know too much about this book, but this is History of Wolves by Emily Friedland. I think everyone and their mom has read this book besides me on BookTube, but apparently I wasn't paying attention when everyone was talking about the synopsis, but there's that one. I think I've read only Exit West out of all the Man Booker nominees for 2017, so I guess this will be my second one. So the next book is one that I actually started in May and I just never got around to finishing it because that was about the time where I was graduating, the papers and exams and all this bullshit. But I do have a copy of it now. This is The Leavers by Lisa Ko. This was one of my most anticipated books for 2017. This revolves around Polly, who is an undocumented Chinese immigrant. She has a son named Daming Guo, and Daming is eventually renamed Daniel, and Daniel moves to New York. He's adopted by another family, but he is kind of reconciling with all the emotions that he has surrounding his mother Polly's disappearance, and it is told from both perspectives of Daniel and of Polly. The next book that I have is called Young Jane Young by Gabrielle Zevin. This is also a book that I was super excited for this year and just never got around to. That seems to be the theme in this video, but this is about a woman whose name is Aviva. She's a congressional intern. She's involved in politics. She has an affair with her boss, who is a married man and also involved in politics. But the interesting thing here is that because she's a woman during this time, she gets all of this crap for it. She is slut-shamed, etc., etc., and the man does not take any flack for it whatsoever. So because she's getting so much bullshit, she decides to move out of town into a very small town, and she decides to rename herself Jane. I'm not sure exactly why, but the blurb does go on to say that she decides to run for public office when she's there. She has a daughter, and she kind of worries that the things from her past will catch up to her. I have always wanted to read more novels that involve women in politics, so I think this one will be wonderful. This next book I am so excited for. You will see this book make a reappearance in my most anticipated books for 2018, but this is called Rainbirds by Clarissa Gunawan. It does come out in March of 2018, so we do have a few months, but I did want to let you guys know about it because I am so excited for it. This book takes place in a small town in Japan. We have our protagonist, his name is Ren. He's almost done with grad school when he gets news that his sister is dead. She has been stabbed one night. There are no witnesses. So he leaves school to go to a small town to try and uncover what happened. He takes her old job and also like some free housing at the home of a politician. And during his kind of self-investigation, he relives memories from his childhood. He tries to figure out all the different inner workings of her job and her life in this small town. I'm extremely excited for this book. Like you guys know from the synopsis, a lot of these things are things that I totally enjoy. So this one is called Rainbirds and it does come out in March. The next book is also a book that I picked up on a whim with store credit at my used bookstore. This is called In the Lap of the Gods by Li Miao Lovett. This is about a dam that rises in the Yangtze River in China and it destroys a whole bunch of homes. Everyone's home is like underwater and people have to take refuge elsewhere. There is a man who is really down on his luck. He doesn't have a lot of money and he finds a baby girl and he saves the baby girl and the story will pick up from there. I had never heard of this book before I found it at the used bookstore, but that is what is cool about used bookstores. You just find little treasures like this one. And the last book that I'm going to show you guys, I also grabbed at my used bookstore. I'd never heard of it before, and I found it. Really cool. So this is called Gonzalez and Daughter Trucking Company by Maria Amparo Escandon. This is about a woman whose name is Libertad. She is in a prison, and she finds time to pass in the prison by reading to people in the literary club there. There's a story that somehow emerges. The blurb is not entirely clear, but there is a former literature professor and fugitive of the Mexican government that moves to the United States and starts this trucking company called Gonzalez and Daughter Trucking Company. The book does go on to describe how the man and the daughter do find their way in this trucking company. They live in their truck. Apparently books and reading have a big role in this story. I'm really excited for this one. I've never heard of anything like it. So that is it for the book haul. Let me know if you guys have read any of the books, and let me know which of those books you find most interesting if you have not read any of them. I hope you guys had a very happy holiday season. If you celebrate it, Merry Christmas. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.